Welcome to Authentic Living with Roxanne, a place where we have conscious conversations about things that really matter in our lives. And now here's your host, Roxanne Derhodge.
Hi everyone, it's Roxanne Derhodge. Thanks for tuning in again this week. I have a special guest, David Miles. David is a PhD in leadership development, and he has come today to the podcast to share about how do you fit behavior with motivations. He does a lot of fascinating things when he works with organizations to help them adapt to meet the needs of what they're seeing organizationally when they want to make change. His interview was so fascinating that we've decided to do part 1 and part 2. This week you have part 1. So much amazing information. And again, next week we'll share the second part of his interview. Hope you enjoy the first, and please, please, please stay tuned for next week when you can join me again at Authentic Living with Roxanne. Hi everyone, it's Roxanne Derhodge of Authentic Living with Roxanne. Thanks for tuning in again today. Today I have David Miles with us. He is a PhD in organizational leadership, and he's here to talk a little bit about, I would say, something that's on a lot of people's minds. You know, how are we going to reintegrate back into work? How is this, all these moving parts going to come together? You know, is it going to be seamless? Is it going to be the same as before I left? What am I going to do with some of the fears that I'm having, not just as an employee, but also as a leader? So, David, thanks so much for coming on today.
Oh, thanks, Roxanne, for having me.
Most welcome. So let's talk a little bit about change, because I think I don't even know. We that term VUCA, which is kind of out there. I don't even know. I think it's VUCA times 10 that we've been living in this concept of homeostatic balance is something that I'm not sure that we'll ever get back to in the way we knew it. But that constance, what we've been going through has been like ongoing change. And now I would say, David's in the U.S., in Virginia, that you're a little bit ahead of us in kind of people going back to work. Here in Canada, we're a little bit behind you in things going back. But let's talk a little bit about kind of your background and what kind of got you here to do the kind of work that you do, working with leaders and teams.
Well, I like to tell a story when I'm doing a keynote or breakout, and it's hilarious because I'll flash up a picture of a chicken sandwich and I will blame it all on, and I do, it's all the fault of a chicken sandwich.
Oh, okay, this one
now,
I will
say people look at me like I've taken some illegal substances or maybe they look at me like I'm a little bit crazy, which I may not deny him on that one. You know what I mean? It's screw loose here or there on occasion, I feel like. But I think sometimes to do the kind of work that you do, you have to, have a little bit of leeway here and there. But the reason I say blame it on the chicken sandwich is when I first started working, as a kid, I'm doing odd jobs and mowing grass and doing yard work and stuff like that for money. And then you can get your, quote, first real job, right? So 15 and a half, I go down to the courthouse and I get a work permit and I go to work for Chick-fil-A at the mall. Now this is long before the cows and long before my pleasure and all this stuff. They were just in malls, right? No freestanding. So everything was just brown and drab, and they sold a lot of chicken. Now it's fast food, right? So fast food's fast food. It doesn't matter what country you're in, doesn't matter whatever. It's not known for being the highest paid. It's not known for being the best work. It's really high, fast paced, whatever. But what got me about it was this. And this is where years later, it really affected me and got me kind of into doing this, is that the gentleman that owned it was very deliberate and very intentional about building a culture in his store that you wanted to come to work. You enjoyed working. It didn't matter that the type of work wasn't necessarily the most glamorous, but he set expectations and he created basically a family environment that you really looked forward to going to work. And his managers and supervisors underneath of him echoed that same type of sentiment. So, personalities aside, you still enjoyed coming to work no matter who was running the show that day. And what I got with that was that he showed a lot of appreciation. He created this great environment, and it really screwed me up. I'm not going to lie to you, because think about it. You're at 18. What do you know at 18, right? And at 18, let's just say you've been 3.5 years, right?
Yeah.
Or 2.5, 3 years. 3 out of 18, that's a pretty high percentage of your days on this earth when you're only 18, right? And you've got 3 of those 18 years, in a certain type of environment work, because that's work. That's your first W-2 job. That's your first job that you're getting a paycheck for. So you go out into the quote unquote real world, right? After you leave there. And you remember the environment you left, and you get in there and you're like, wow, this guy's a jerk. How's a jerk? What's going on with it? You start working for a bad series of bad bosses, and you're like, why is it like this? And people are like, well, that's just the way it is. I'm like, no, it's not the way it is. I just came from an environment that blah, blah, blah. And you list out the features, and I'm like, no, son, it's not like that. It's kind of like they look down on you at 18. You're like, look, boy, that ain't the real world. Like that, the world doesn't work like that. And I'm like, you don't understand, Sparky. I just left that, right? That was my lived experience for the last 3 years, right? Big percentage of your life at that point. You're like,
well, you lucked out because most people have really horrific stories as their first, your 1 or 2 jobs, right?
Exactly. But what it did, it created this cognitive dissonance to where, wait a minute, it doesn't have to be like this. No one's perfect. That place wasn't perfect. No company, no organization, no leader, no manager, no person is perfect. But they were intentional and deliberate about creating that environment to keep the people there. There's some people that are going to stay, and some people just because of college and things that are going to go. And you have to create that environment, because the people that are willing to stay and want to move up and want to do, you got to create that environment where they don't want to go. And that's what reduces their turnover, increases their engagement. That's what people want to come work there. And what get me was, I always wanted to try to figure out to get back to that environment. How do you make the workplace like that? It can be done, but how? That's one of the reasons I went back to school, is to, how do I deconstruct the process? How do I, figure out these ways to help, increase engagement and, reduce turnover and make a workplace, a better place to go and help leaders create amazing teams. I mean, how do you do that? I saw it done before, but I wanted to learn for myself. Okay, let me peek under the hood. It's kind of like, I know how to drive a car, and it gets me where I need to go, and I'll enjoy the car, but maybe let me go to the mechanic school and figure out how this whole thing works, right? So
do you remember the qualities of the first leader that you worked for? Do you remember some of the things that he or she, I'm assuming it's a man, did that makes you realize now, wow, that these were significant things that companies, like you said, going forward, you needed to see, but you weren't seeing?
Yeah, I think he was very authentic. What you saw was what you got. It wasn't a lot of fake corporate speak. He was very appreciative. He showed a lot of gratitude towards the employees. He thanked people for coming in. Thanked you for doing something you were supposed to do anyway, but still that little bit of gratitude, that honest. The reason I said authentic at first is because when he did give you a compliment, or I did thank you for coming in, or whatever, that was a genuine, heartfelt thing. It wasn't a tip, trick, or technique. It wasn't a hack. It wasn't I can make people think that I appreciate them and they're going to like working for me more. No, he actually appreciated the people that were working for him. They were contributing to the success of the whole organization. And
which seems really simple, right, David? But
yes,
it is so basic, but it's just about, I often say that, unfortunately, I've had my fair share of not so good leaders, and I've had, I would say, a small percentage of really phenomenal leaders. And, those ones, the ones that are kind and authentic, they stick out. They're like a beaming light, and you can see how sometimes, I can think of myself in my tenure, that I actually stayed behind longer, potentially because I liked that leader that I was working for. And in retrospect, I was like, I really want to stay because I like this person, but I know my trajectory in my career needs to go somewhere else.
Those type of people are a credit to the organization that they work for. And because the old adage is as true today as it was when when it was coined, is that people don't leave organizations for the most part. People leave people. And you could have the best job, the best organization to work for, and your direct manager can make it a great place to work or a horrible place, and you've got to get out of there. So I've myself, and I've also seen lots of people that I know leave good jobs, leave good environment, things that, this would be a great place if, and but the people that they're working for make it a place that they just don't want to go. So it's funny that you mentioned that, is because I look at it as not a fad or a tip or a trick or some kind of, like I said, some kind of hack. I look at it as, that's genuine, authentic. I really do appreciate the people that are working with me. I really do have a sense of empathy. So there's no doubt in my mind. I didn't know the term before, and I wasn't familiar with it, but there's no doubt that he had a very high level of emotional intelligence. I know that, like I said, he was just a good moral integrity, I guess is a good way to put it. He was going to do the right thing, even if it cost him, even if it, okay, yes, you're right. I said I was going to do that. And okay, that's good. Yep. I'm sorry. I did tell you I was going to give you the day off, and okay, that's going to put it shorthanded, but I told you. And so have it, just doing the right thing because it's the right thing, not because it's.
And with authentic leadership, but with a lot of the research that's done, moral integrity is in line. Even if it, like you said, he may have said to you, "Hey, sure, you'll have the Friday off before the July 4th or whatever," and then he didn't think it through, and then all of a sudden he's short-staffed, and he said he keeps his word to say, because I've said you could, even though it's going to put him out. And I think that those qualities sometimes. Do you think it's qualities that are easier to teach? Some people seem to have, I would say, intuitively, a real deep sense of some core fundamentals to be authentic. Meaning, I'm not saying, and some people just naturally, they seem to have it. Do you find that's something that you see a lot out there, or do you find that sometimes you actually see leadership teams where you have to teach some of the basic fundamentals to what we call emotional intelligence?
It's a combination of both. The best lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, but my best lawyer answer would be it depends. I've taken enough law classes to figure out that's the best. But it really does depend. Some people, like you said, they've grown up around the environment and look at it as nature and nurture type of thing. If you grow up in an environment or you work in an environment where you see good leadership modeled, you might not understand the component pieces of it, but you just know that's what that was great for me. So I'm going to model what I saw because it was a great place to work, and I would like to produce that same type of result. I'm going to do the same thing. Consequently, if you've never seen that modeled, you may not, and it's not your fault, you may not necessarily know how. You might not know the component pieces of a good leader because you've never worked for one. Now, saying that, I always had this philosophy in my head about two different clipboards. When I first started the career after that, I ended up joining the emergency medical services for years, and I was in the fire department, municipal fire department, doing both. And I laughed because in my mind, the way I pictured it with good bosses, bad bosses, is it was at this old, worn down, rickety fire station, and it had all these pieces of apparatus. And years ago, every single one of them had a little clipboard with a little cup hook, and that was the checkoff sheet. You go down for the day. Well, the two clipboards always just kind of stuck in my head. On one, when I become the boss type of thing, what to do, because I've seen good leadership model, what to do. And then on the other clipboard, the what not to do. Now, I might only have maybe a quarter page, half page on the what to do clipboard, but I felt like, depending on a few people that I'd worked with and worked for, I felt like that the what not to do was almost like that green striped dot matrix print stuff at tax time. It just kept coming and coming and coming, and just went on forever, And I'm like, well, not the brightest bulb in the marquee, but if I can and I might not have a lot of examples of what to do, but if I can actively avoid the what not to do, just by default, I'm going to stumble on.
You're going to shine. You're going to shine.
You're going to stumble on the good stuff. So, I mean, I would take people that, if you work for bad leaders, what are some of the things you hated about it? I mean, and just, this guy was a jerk. He was a bully. He was what? Well, then don't be a jerk. Don't be a bully. Don't just, well, he was mean to me. Well, then don't be mean to people. Be nice. Okay. Oh my God, what a concept. It's just do the opposite.
I'm going to play devil's advocate with that, because I've been in corporate environments, and I've been an executive in environments, and I remember I always joke around and say it's because of my Caribbean heritage, right? Small, connected, and I would like be open and, and I remember, being, knocked back because I was so connected, because I was looking for connection. So with the other executives on the team, or I'd be, sharing things about my portfolio, and I'd be told, why are you being so open? You shouldn't be at that. And I'm like, I'm working as an executive in health and wellness, and but you're asking me to be incongruent with what I am supposed to be supporting, and it was a given. And there was so many examples that I saw over my years, over and over again, that every level you went up, like, so the level above me was even that much more disconnected than my level. And like you said about that implicit normative behavior, you get told one thing, and the vision, mission, all those things, and then the reality is behind the house.
Yes,
it's incongruent.
Good point on that, because there is a lot of, that's why I just really bang the gong on the authenticity end of it, because a lot of it is incongruent. It just, to really build an amazing workplace culture, you have to be selling the vision, mission, values all the time. You cannot just come together once every 3 to 5 years in the executive boardroom, and it's only the folks, at the 15th floor and above that come together in this boardroom, create this strategic plan, vision, mission, values, high five everybody, hey, we got another 5-year plan going, stick that stuff on the wall.
Yeah.
And then that's all it is something on the wall. Because if you're not constantly out there selling it, and people have different contexts and definitions of what I mean, what they think of when I hear selling it, but you got to constantly be casting that vision. You got to constantly be, this is where we're going and this is how we're going to get there, to everybody, the leadership, the staff, and everybody has to be on the same page. And if they are, as the senior leader, that's the way you can kind of shape that culture, is because you're constantly selling it. Look at some of the best performing organizations in the world. I don't think that somebody ever goes to work at Apple thinking to themselves, especially when Steve Jobs was there, he talks a good game on stage about having nice design and products at work, but that's not what I'm seeing when we're here trying to build the piece. That just simplistic, easy to use design, the philosophy that they had behind their products, I think that just resonated throughout, and it was just ended up being something unconscious at some point, which is when cultures really work, because now all of a sudden it just seems to be an unconscious part of the organization. That's just the way we do it. It's excellence. It's
yeah, because like the thing is, and I think of like us in the last 18 months or so, really any mission, vision, and value had to be, your finger had to be on the pulse day by day, week by week, about what was happening. For instance, I was talking to a lot of CEOs in IT, and when the pandemic, was heightened there, they had people, continuing to work at the level they did because of their culture. Not saying, I've got my mother and father that are both have COVID and I have nowhere to go. So they keep, kind of working, and then in turn they're burning out, or people are dying around them. But culturally, they always follow through with expectations. So, the CEO on that level has to know, what every line and every multinational location or international location is happening, because it's not on a static kind of vision or mission anymore.
Really difficult. And I think at those upper levels, especially the bigger the organization gets, the more you have to be very, very deliberate about being able to have channels of communication that kind of go around the traditional org chart. Because I think if you're not getting what the real story is from the mid-level and from the ground, and you're just getting what's filtered up, middle management's a hard place to be. You're catching it from both ends. So I am not trying to, don't get me wrong with what I'm getting ready to say, but I do have a joke about middle management being the most efficient filtration system in the world. Like reverse osmosis and desalination has nothing on middle management, right? What are you going to do if the people underneath you are unhappy? You're going to, hey boss, all my people hate this place and they're unhappy, they're going to leave. You're really gonna go tell them unless you've really truly built that relationship.
Of course.
And it's a safe psychological space. And they're like, no, I want the truth, because a lot of times just shoot the messenger. And of course, you're gonna, it's just gonna get happier and happier as it goes on. And if you're the CEO or you're one of the VPs, and by the time it gets to you, it's really good. The news is fine.
The air is so thin up there. They're nothing, everything. They're like, ooh, everything's good, because everybody's generally afraid. Organization, when you talk about psychological safety, that they're afraid to go up to, the ones that are around the CEO. A lot of times, they're telling him or her, if they're not feeling psychologically safe, what they want to hear, which is oftentimes a disconnect from, like you said, the frontline and the middle managers, right? And then people wonder, why is my short term going through the roof? Why is my long term going through the roof? My incidental absences, my arbitrations, but everybody's happy.
If my employee engagement is in the toilet, and my employee engagement is down, well, maybe I need to get a new consultant. I don't like the questions they're asking. We'll get a new consultant in to ask different questions on the employee engagement survey, and that'll help. And if they still come back bad, then we'll fire him or her. We'll get another assessment company, and we'll do another set of organizational assessments.
Be sure to tune in next week for the second part of Dr. David Miles' interview.
Thanks for tuning in to Authentic Living with Roxanne, creating the space for positive, healthy change. Roxanne is a keynote speaker, psychotherapist, and coach. To work with Roxanne, visit roxannederhage.com/blueprint. We'll see you next time on Authentic Living with Roxanne.